Is my camera okay? Is it? Okay.
Yes, your camera is good.
Okay. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم اجعلنا من أهل القرآن الذين هم أهلك وخاصتك. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us in the month of Rajab and Sha'ban, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to witness the month of Ramadan. SubhanAllah, it's been a whole year since we were in Ramadan, and it's less than 2 months until Ramadan comes. This is definitely a blessing from Allah, but also it's an indication of how fast our the time is running. SubhanAllah. So for those of us who are waiting until Ramadan starts and they are just postponing our dose of the Quran or postponing self-improvement, read and reflect on the passage of time and how time is going very quickly. SubhanAllah. Yeah, that was the first comment I have. The second comment, alhamdulillah, yesterday our Muslim activism bootcamp started. Alhamdulillah ta'ala, we had a very deep session about impact, how we define impact, how we define change, how we would like our work to be measured. So alhamdulillah, that was a lot of khair, a lot of barakah in this material. I've been always wanting to teach this material, and alhamdulillah, now I found the time to put it together. And this could become another book, Allah Alam, or another series of boot camps. So inshallah, it's my first time teaching it, but inshallah, it won't be the only one. I'll keep kind of, there will be another opportunity to go again, bi'idhnillah. And today's quote by Imam al-Dhahabi is related to the theme of activism, service, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and trying to understand where did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put you, in what position, in what capacity, and trying to understand that there is no one way of service. There's no one way of leadership or activism. There's different ways. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enabled many of us to get closer to him in different ways. So this quote is actually a letter, a message exchange between Abdullah bin Abdul Aziz al-Umari, who was a worshipper. He was a monk, and monks or hermits used to seclude themselves in worship. They would go to their place of seclusion and isolate themselves from the whole world and just worship Allah and be lead a spiritual life. Imam Malik was a scholar, was somebody who was living in the thick of the city life and the busy life and the buying and selling and classes. He would talk to rulers, kings. So Imam Malik did not seclude himself at all. He was busy in ilm. So these are two role models. These are, you can consider them as two influencers in their time. Each one of them chose to worship Allah and leave their contribution in a different way. And subhanAllah, the discussion between Imam Abdullah and Imam Malik reminds me of a lot of discussions happening on college campuses, in community centers, between different students of knowledge who might attend programs for different shuyukh, different scholars, different teachers. And sometimes teacher A will tell their students, I want you to go memorize the Quran. This is the best way to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه. The best ones among you are the ones who learn Quran and teach it. And the same students will be masjid hopping. They will jump from teacher to teacher, from program to program, from institute to institute. And when they go to the other institute, the other sheikh will tell them, oh, the best thing you can do is to work in da'wah for the sake of Allah. And I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that. That's the best way. And the students become confused. Okay, what should I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? And I've been into these discussions like a zillion times. And I think I wrote some of those scenarios in the book, the 40 Hadith on Community Service, that there's no one size fits all in terms of community service, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But again, the question is always asked, what is the best way I can serve the community? What's the best way I can secure highest place in paradise? Subhanallah. So for those people who are stuck in this dilemma of what to do, what program to choose, what act of worship to subscribe to, I would like to tell you, first of all, it's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have. If you live in a community where there are a lot of classes, online or in person, and you are stuck between a Sira class and a Tafsir class and a spirituality class and a history class and an activism class, if you have this dilemma, it's a good problem to have. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, students like yourself did not have this problem. They had only few books in English that were well written. They had only few programs, few audio lectures or tapes. They did not have information overdose. Now we have a different problem, subhanAllah. So yeah, that's the first comment. But also, if we just try to dive deeper into the message, so let me tell you the message that Abdullah bin. So the message between Abdullah and Imam Malik, and I think we understand the context and how is this relevant to our landscape of events and opportunities in the Muslim community. Feel free to type your questions in the chat, like on how that relates to your struggle. Okay. Sister Amna, can you spotlight the video?
Spotlight your video. I actually don't know how to do that.
No.
Sorry.
Okay.
Let me just.
I already did that. I did it. Okay. I did that. Yeah.
My apologies.
Okay. What? Sorry.
Sorry, I just said my apologies. I've never done Spotlight before.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. No worries. No worries. Bismillah. I think I figured it out. Right. So again, Imam Abdullah, the worshipper, the hermit, sent a message to Imam Malik, encouraging him يحض على الانفراد عمل, encouraging him to seclude himself in worship and just do good deeds in private. So Malik wrote to him and said, "Man, إن الله قسم الأعمال كما قسم الأرزاق." Allah divided deeds and opportunities for khair between people exactly as He divided arzaq, sustenance. Allah made someone rich, someone poor. Allah made someone work in as a blacksmith, another one as a carpenter, another one as a farmer, another one as a teacher. Allah divided the the professions between people. Allah divided the wealth between people. Not everyone is given the same wealth, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala divided the opportunities to do good deeds between people. فرب رجل فتح له في الصلاة ولم يفتح له في الصوم. There is a person whom Allah opens doors for khair for him in salat, in prayer, but not in fasting. وآخر فتح له في الصدقة ولم يفتح له في الصوم. And another person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed them, has encouraged them, has opened doors for sadaqah, for charity, but Allah did not open doors for them to do so sometimes some people, Allah allowed them to do more charity than fasting. SubhanAllah, Allah encouraged them. Allah opened their appetite. Allah gave them more. SubhanAllah, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who divides the opportunities between His servants. وآخر فتح له في الجهاد. And another person, Allah allowed them, enabled them to do jihad, strive and struggle in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ونشر العلم من أفضل الأعمال. And spreading knowledge is one of the best, noblest of deeds. وقد رضيت ما فتح لي فيه. And I am pleased with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed me to do in this specific deed, which is spreading knowledge. وما أظن ما أنا فيه بدون ما أنت فيه. And I don't think that what I'm doing is any less than what you are doing. Look at the adab also. So we have this incident of disagreement, which one is better. One leader in the camp of being a monk and hermit, and seclusion, was inviting the other leader to join his camp. And he told him, I don't think that what I'm doing is less than what you are doing. He didn't say I'm better. Notice the adab. Notice the choice of words that tells us a lot about their manners, about their akhlaq. وما أظن أن ما أنا فيه بدون ما أنت فيه. وأرجو أن يكون كلانا على خير وبر. And what I hope is that both of us are doing are standing upon goodness and righteousness, and both of us are serving the community in our way. Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah. If we take this and apply it to our modern day questions and dilemmas, we understand that subhanallah, the Muslim community needs a lot of work, a lot of good deeds. The Muslim community needs people who will take care of the youth, people who will help our young men and women get married and facilitate that. Our Muslim community needs somebody who will teach Arabic, somebody who will teach Quran. We need people who will spread the da'wah to non-Muslims. We need a lot of people who will keep converts, who those who choose to convert to Islam or revert to Islam, steadfast in their deen. We need people who will organize events. We need people who will prepare notes for the speaker and scholar to go and deliver their lecture. Subhanallah, there's tons of opportunities for khair. And it is wrong to assume that one of those is better than others. We have to think about, first of all, and if we want to define impact, we want to think about three things. First of all, sincerity. Are you doing this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or are you have a personal agenda? Do you want to get famous? Do you want to get connections? Are you doing this for the sake of Allah? That's what matters. Not what you are doing, why you are doing it. The why is more important than the what. That's number one. And number two, are you doing this with ihsan? Are you trying to excel, to practice ihsan, excellence in the service that you're doing? And another criteria is, are you really adding to the bottom line? Like what are you producing? Are you producing something, or are you a spectator in the landscape of Islam, somebody who's only watching on the outside, or are you in the game? Do you have skin in the game? You are trying your best to really contribute and do. Subhanallah. So Imam al-Dhahabi, who's narrating this story in his book سير أعلام النبلاء, which is basically the biographies of the noble, the famous noble in the Ummah. الذهبي said ما أحسن ما جاوب العمري عليه بسابق مشيئة الله في عباده. He said, this is a very excellent response from Imam Malik when he attributed choosing ilm versus choosing seclusion and worship, that this is fadlullah. This is Allah's plan. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala distributing opportunities for khair among people. ولم يفضل طريقته في العلم على طريقة العمري في التأله والزهد. Imam Malik did not indicate or suggest or did not enforce the idea that one way of doing good deeds is better than the other. Subhanallah. So this is basically the quote I wanted to share today. How does that relate to the Quran? Basically, we have a beautiful surah in the Quran, Surah Al-Mu'minun, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us all of these, surah number 23 in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us all of these list of good deeds, and Allah tells them in a very interesting way. Allah is merging in this surah between being good to Allah in worship and being good to people in service. And that's a beautiful surah which we can inshallah read today inshallah, but we can dive into details later. Allah says in Surah Al-Mu'minun, chapter number 23, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم قد أفلح المؤمنون. So sincerely, successful indeed are the believers. الذين هم في صلاتهم خاشعون. Those who are humble in their prayers. So الذين هم في صلاتهم خاشعون. Those who are humble and focused in their prayers. So Allah, when He talked about the believers, first and foremost, He talked about them being humble in their prayers. So He talked about their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next ayah talks about their relationship with people. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ. And those who avoid idle talk. Those who avoid the talk that is useless, the vain talk. Not the haram talk, not the backbiting. Backbiting is haram. Al-laghu is the excessive talk that is neither halal or haram, And Allah is saying that the believers who are successful are the ones who stay away from al-laghu as much as possible, right? So the first characteristic, the first trait is the rights of Allah. The second trait is the rights of people. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِلزَّكَاةِ فَاعِلُونَ. And those who basically fulfill the duties of zakat. So again, حق الله, حق العباد. The rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the rights of ibad. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ. And those who guard their chastity, guard their private parts from falling into zina. إلا على أزواجهم أو ما ملكت أيمانهم فإنهم غير ملومين. So they guard their private parts from falling into zina, except for their spouses, or if they happen to live in a system or society that allows basically women who were enslaved. Of course, this is from prehistoric times. Then there's no blame on them. Then Allah says, فَمَنِ ابْتَغَى وَرَاءَ ذَلِكَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْعَادُونَ. And whoever seeks beyond this are actually transgressors. And then Allah says, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِأَمَانَاتِهِمْ وَعَهْدِهِمْ رَاعُونَ. And those who are trusty, who are true to their promises and trusts and covenants. Subhanallah. They observe, when they give a word, they stick to it. Rights of Allah, rights of people. Rights of Allah, rights of people. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَلَى صَلَوَاتِهِمْ يُحَافِظُونَ. So the ayah or the passage started with the believers who stick to their daily prayers and they are humble in them. And it concluded the passage also with what? Those who are observing in a proper way their daily prayers. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْوَارِثُونَ. Those are the ones who will be inheriting paradise. الَّذِينَ يَرِثُونَ الْفِرْدَوْسَ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. Those who will inherit the al-firdaus, the highest level of paradise, and they will live in it forever. Subhanallah. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refer to entering paradise that they will be inheriting paradise? We know from the tafsir that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when every human being is born, Allah will allocate for each one of us a spot in the paradise and a spot in the fire. Subhanallah. So imagine you have 8 billion people on earth, 8 billion, each one of them will have real estate in Jannah and in the fire. So eventually some people will go to the fire, some people will go to the Jannah. So what happens to the unallocated, unclaimed real estate that is in Jannah, that was supposed to be to a person, but that person chose to go to commit kufr, and basically they ended up in the fire? Their property will be inherited by another believer who will enter Jannah, so they will earn double property, subhanAllah, or triple, or 10x, or what have you, subhanAllah. لذلك Allah in many ayat in the Quran talks about al-wiratha, that تلك الجنة التي نورث من عبادنا من كان تقيا, that this is the paradise that we will allow the righteous servants among us, of ours, to inherit. This idea of inheriting is because you will get your property that's allocated for you, and you will get the property of someone else, and you will be saved from the property in the fire that was also allocated for you, subhanallah, because Allah لا يظلم مثقال ذرة. It's not that we are born with some favoritism that we are inclined to Jannah or to the fire. No, it's our choices, our deeds, our reaction or compliance to the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's also, subhanAllah, there's also a hadith that shows when the deceased person is put in their grave, they will have a window to the fire and a window to the Jannah, and they will be shown that this was your spot in the fire, but Allah has saved you from it. So that believer will say, Alhamdulillah, they will be grateful to Allah because they saved them from the fire, and then they will be shown the spot in the Jannah that it was reserved for them, but they will deserve it because of their deeds, subhanallah. So yeah, that was only the tangent on the inheritance part. So again, what is the message here? Is that subhanallah, Allah has given all of us the obligations of Islam, the obligations to dress modestly, the obligations to be dutiful to our parents, the obligations about the 5 daily prayers, fasting Ramadan, doing Hajj once in a lifetime, paying zakat if we have the, if we have the means, and if our money goes beyond a certain limit. Those are universal obligations, fard ayn on everyone. But then beyond that, the doors for Islam, the doors for khair are wide open, subhanAllah. And we really have to think and reflect and deep inside, what did Allah give me? What did Allah allow me to go and contribute and to go and spend from the resources, the talents, the opportunities. And it's okay if you find yourself inclined to one form of good deeds more than others, as long as you do the basics, subhanAllah. It's okay, but the idea here is to really reflect on, where does Islam need me? Number one. Number two, what kind of sorry, we lost electricity here. So just a second. Normal Lebanon stuff. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Okay, Bismillah. Right. So just to wrap it up, the idea is it requires some reflection that the rizq that Allah gives us is not only the worldly material rizq. The deeds that we are given, the friendships, the communities, the resources, the talents we're given, all of this is part of rizq. And technically the rizq is whatever Allah gave us that we can spend back, that we can give back. This is the rizq in the most general, universal sense. So I hope that this can guide us to ask ourselves whether you consider yourself an activist, a leader, a community servant or not, to guide us what can we contribute, how can we really tap into the resources Allah has given us, so that inshallah ta'ala, when we meet Allah on the day of judgment, we show Allah that these are the blessings, ya Allah, that you gave us, and this is what we have done with your blessings, because that's what this is all about, inshallah. So I hope that this makes sense. If there's anyone who has any comments, feel free to share, inshallah ta'ala. Yeah, I like that. Hafsa, barakallahu feekum. In this life, we are constantly chasing different levels of success, however we define success, or however we define deeds. Yeah, beautiful. Jazakumullah so much for that comment. Any other comment, ya Jama'ah? Any other doors of success or doors of khair that you feel people should be aware of? Because what it boils down to is, each one of us can contribute. Each one of us can teach. بَلِّغُوا عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً. Spread the word, deliver on my behalf, even if it was one ayah. Each one of us can find their position in the wall of the ummah, as the hadith that we always mention, and I love that hadith. المؤمن للمؤمن كالبنيان يشد بعضه بعضا وشبك بين أصابعه صلى الله عليه وسلم. The believers to one another are like bricks of the same structure, and they strengthen one another. That's always the question, that where am I in the wall of the ummah? What kind of brick am I adding to the wall, to the structure, to the house of the ummah? That's always the question that we need to keep asking, subhanAllah. Fatin is also adding, it reminds us not to look down on another Muslim who is not doing as much as us in a certain act, because they might be better than us in other acts. Beautiful. Jazakumullah khair. Someone who might be contributing less than us in one field, let's say they memorize less Quran than us, are not at all less than us, because they might be contributing in other fields. They might be living in a community where there are fewer Muslims, and just by them sticking to their deen, wearing their hijab, staying to themselves, keeping themselves and family away from the haram, that's a big contribution, subhanAllah. So may Allah allow us to Jannah, ya Rab. May Allah allow us to really gather us and so that we inherit Jannah, subhanAllah. Barakallahu feekum. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to really, ya Jama'ah, what you guys are doing in this, what we are doing together in this weekly dose is amazing, because we're really contributing like small doses. And these doses, if we can share them with someone else, if we can take some notes and just keep those short consistent doses of inspiration to each other and to our families, that could be a great amount of خير بإذن الله. So جزاكم الله خير. Now it's time for Maghrib, so I need to catch Maghrib. Alhamdulillah, barakallah fikum. They are gems because the Quran, the source, whatever you derive, they are gems because the raw material is the Quran, which is, I don't know if it's appropriate to call it raw material, but the raw material is the Quran. So whatever you derive from it and whatever you inspire from it will always be gems. Subhanallah. طيب يا جماعة الخير، بارك الله فيكم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Hafsa is adding, those who are humbly submissive in their prayers. You're actually okay. نعم. الخشوع يا جزاكم الله خير. يلا السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
عليكم.
Any questions, by the way, before we conclude? Questions, go ahead. Bismillah. Amna, you want to stop? If you want to stop recording?
Okay, yeah, I could stop recording.
Yeah.